to plan your day. The mountains are calling you out to play. Come on, we'll make you feel right at home. Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail. Let's see what lies in store for you. There's so many things to see and do. Summer, winter, spring or fall, you're home in the Rockies as it all. So gear up, get ready to plan your day. The ideas are brewing, you're on your way. The fun is waiting outside your door. Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail.
Hi there, this is Good Day Vail, and I'm Cece Zach, the host of the show. This show is designed to be your eyes and ears to help you thrive in the mountains in your daily life. And today's episode is one that's very near and dear to my heart because it's one that's really been elusive to me. It's a topic that I think everyone should know about and learn and see if it fits into who you are. Today is the Hut Trip episode, and we're going to focus on the winter side of things. And I'm so blessed to have Will Elliot, who is the president and owner of Paragon Guides, as well as a friend, Richelle Burnett, who is amongst a wide variety of things, a very avid hut enthusiast. She's also a fellow ski instructor with me, and this is a show that you must watch because everyone should go on a hut trip. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Good Day Vail, the Hut Trip episode.
Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail.
Hi there, I'm Cece with Good Day Vail, and thanks for sticking with us because I am so excited about this episode. It is a topic that I have just been yearning to find out more about, and I'm thrilled to have Will and Richelle here with us today to talk about hut trips. But before we do that, I think it's really important for the viewers to know a little bit about the two of you, why you've been in Vail and how long you've been here and what keeps you here. So, Richelle, will you share with the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, we have moved to Colorado about 13 years ago, and we got a place in Avon about 8 years ago. And it's allowed me to become a part-time ski instructor, which is just a fabulous job. And I am fortunate enough to have made friends, and thus the hut trips started for me with people who've been here much longer than that.
So how long have you been in Vail for, though, full, part-time?
My brother had a job at Beaver Creek in the 80s, so I've been coming since the 80s when it was brand new.
All right, viewers, another testament why this valley is why we thrive.
Yes.
And Will, your story's a little bit different. You've been here forever.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be born and raised here in the Vail Valley, and my family started Paragon Guides, which has allowed me to stay in the valley and enjoy this place both in the winter and in the summer.
Yeah, and now you have kids too, young kids. And
young kids growing up here, doing the same things I got to do growing up, so yeah.
Well, and speaking of the things that you did growing up, tell us a little bit about hut trips and you. How did you get involved in them?
Well, luckily enough, my parents were very adventuresome and decided to take us, our whole family, my two sisters and myself, on hut trips as young as I was 3 years old, and kind of...
Oh my goodness, 3 years
That's awesome.
old.
Yeah, kind of continued
Of course, you were
that.
snowshoeing, cross-country skiing at the time, snowshoeing?
Snowshoeing, being pulled in sleds,
Yeah, that's
cross-country skiing, yeah. Yeah, and it just kind of became a family tradition of doing hut trips either over Christmas or spring break, and luckily it's just an amazing opportunity for people to get out and experience winter there.
So you mentioned two other sisters, just in this spirit. What is the age difference of all three of you so that we can comprehend what it was like for your parents to take you on a trip at that age?
Yeah, my older sister's 18 months ahead of me, and then my younger sister's 4 years behind me. So yeah.
Oh my, yeah. Wow, that's a lot. That's
So,
a lot. So, but it's ingrained in you, and as I recall, you now have carried on that tradition that you do hut trips every year, right?
Yeah, I've taken my family and my young kids on hut trips, first by pulling them in a sled, and now they're snowshoeing or cross-country skiing to some of the closer huts, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Now, Richelle, what about you? Your story is a little bit different.
As far as family, I have 3 children also, and I had 3 in 3.5 years, so that was busier. But I started taking my kids. I was fortunate to go on a couple hut trips with a group of adults, and then I loved it so much, I realized I had to take my children, and so my youngest was 8 when we started doing it as a family, and we would snowshoe in.
And tell us a little bit about your first 1 or 2 before you got confident enough to do them on your own.
Like I said, I didn't know anything about huts. It's kind of the secret world out there. But I was friends with a mom at school, and she had been included. It was a group of attorneys that had been doing it for like 25 years. And the group, as they got married and had kids, it was harder to get the group together, and so they'd have empty spots at the last minute. So I got invited through my friend. And I'm so fortunate that I got to go with a group that was so experienced. They knew everything, what to bring. They made it really easy to figure it out. And so after my second one, I was like, I think I could take my family. I think I'm good.
So for the 4 to 5 years that I've been in the Valley, hut trips to me have been very elusive. And I think there's a wide variety of reasons why that it has been for me, but maybe the two of you could also tell our viewers, what is a hut trip? So, Will, from your perspective, what is a hut trip for Paragon Guides?
Well, it's basically traveling in winter, especially in the winter hut trips, into one of these cabins. They're pretty nice. Most of them, the ones that we use.
Yep, and we've got photos that we're showing the viewers too, as you're telling us this.
Yeah,
so.
they about sleep 16 people. Paragon and myself mostly work in the 10th Mountain Division hut system, which is pretty famous in the United States and worldwide for its connection between Vail and Aspen and allowing these ski towns to be connected through a ski traverse. But going on a hut trip is just, one, being prepared and getting all the right equipment, but then going out and being able to spend basically camping outside in the winter. And I think that's really special. It's not something a lot of people get to do, is experience nature in the winter environment. So.
Now, Richelle, what's a hut trip to you?
So I go winter and summer. I love them so much. So in the winter, again, I think it's so hard to do things in this day and age that are slightly difficult. It's very doable, but it takes effort and preparedness, and it's a great sense of accomplishment to get. They're all over 10,000 feet when you get there. To have brought.
Well, I didn't realize that all of them are over 10,000 feet. Okay.
Yeah,
Colorado.
you're up there.
Yeah.
And I want my kids to grow up doing things that are hard and accomplishing something. And we all love camping, and so it is winter camping. And magical. It's quiet. It's just you and nature. There's nothing. And it's just great family bonding time, too, because there's no distractions. And teenagers like to be in the room, and on a hut trip, you're all together, and we play games, and they help me cook, and it's some of our fondest memories. I think when they look back when they're grown up, they're going to say our hut trips were some of the best things we ever did.
Now, you mentioned kids. Now, is there internet availability or cell service?
Sadly,
the sense you're getting.
There's some huts that we have been going to that originally did not have internet, and so my kids were out building forts and playing. And now there is, so that allows us to play some music maybe, or there's some benefits to it.
But you put rules around how the kids use it. Okay.
Yep, and we play charade, so then there's some internet charade, they tell you the words to use and stuff. So there's a few benefits to it. But not all of them have internet, thankfully.
Now, Will, tell us a little bit about the inspiration that you see your clients get from these types of hut trips.
Well, I think a sense of accomplishment is a big thing of just going out and pushing themselves and out of their element and shutting off the phones. I think that's a huge thing we all try to do, even as guides and as participants. And I don't like to sound like their dad or anything, but I'm the person who says, hey, we're not going to use our phones in the huts. If you have to make a phone call, go outside in the freezing cold and do it.
Yeah.
In the huts, we're going to try to create this space that's, still very primitive, and and I think, and everyone buys into it. Everyone wants to shut off their phone and be away from society for a little while and be with that group. And just, those are the memories you have, is building a bond with this group that you have without all these other distractions in life.
Now, you mentioned a bond with the group. I think when we were preparing for the episode, one of the things that I loved that you feel that your clients get is a sense of being pushed out of their comfort zone. Tell us a little bit about pushing your clients out of their comfort zone and the growth they have individually.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people that sign up for a hut trip have that sense of adventure. No one's coming that's like, I don't want to be there. So that's great. I think, but I've seen clients grow from coming for one night because they didn't quite know. And then the next year they come for 2 nights. And then on the 3rd year, it's 3 nights. And those, the longer that hut trip goes, the more involved you get in it, not only being the bond with your group that you're creating, but also with the environment that you're out there, and understanding that we need to make water for snow and helping out with the simple chores around the huts and just all those things. They buy into the way of life that is a hut trip.
So you had mentioned that people probably wouldn't be there unless they really want to be there. Are there any prerequisites that you think a first timer, which would be me, needs to have, from a mental perspective, from a physical perspective, before they went on one of these trips?
I mean, you have to have some physical activity. I think, walking, hiking, running are all obviously good things. You are going to, as we mentioned, above 10,000 feet. So the elevation and altitude sickness is a big concern for a lot of people. But taking it slow, drinking water, it's not a race. That's what I always tell people. A lot of people that go on say, I run 8 miles. That's a whole lot different than going 3 miles on a skin. It takes us
with your pack.
With your pack, yeah. But a sense of adventure and some physical activity. There's a lot of huts you can make it to. There's the hut variety or the hut difficulty. There's some that are just a couple minutes, a couple miles, and some that are a few miles.
Richelle, do you have one word as a prerequisite?
Everybody can do it, which is not one word.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to ask our viewers to stay tuned with Good Day Vail. This is the Hut Trip episode, because you don't want to miss the next segment where we're going to talk about all the logistics where you can do it. Stay tuned.
Good Day Vail. Good Day Vail.
Welcome back to Good Day Vail, and this is the Hut Trip episode, and I'm thrilled once again to introduce Will and Richelle to our viewers. I've just thoroughly enjoyed the first half of this show to talk about hut trips and the whys behind it. So before we get into more of the logistics, let's just reiterate very briefly, why should anyone go on a hut trip?
I mean, we live in Colorado. It is magical, and this is one of the unique experiences to Colorado. And it's stunning, it's magical, it's different. You can't do it almost anywhere else.
Love that. Different too. Will, what about you?
Like I said, why not? They've been created here in Colorado, and there's huts everywhere, but the 10th Mountain Hut system and huts here in Colorado are truly special and have, some historical value to them, and it's just a great way to experience nature.
Yeah, I love that. And after this, you will definitely get me out there, but if someone was planning, such as myself, who has, I'm not a backpacker routinely, and I'm not a backcountry person, Will, how would you coach them? They walk into your store or they give you a phone call. What are you going to say to them?
I think first is finding a hut that is suitable for you. For your first trip, you don't want to pick the hardest hut. There's a lot of huts that are more accessible, but they're hard to book. So plan ahead and prepare is key. You got to book almost a year out for some of these huts. So, and then just kind of knowing where you're going, getting a map, doing your research. There's a ton of information available online through different forums and websites. But finding one that's achievable, as I tell people, for their first hut trip is a good starting point.
So, and we've showed quite a few of the huts already on the show, but I was amazed at how big these huts are. How many people do they hold? They're like mini houses. How many people do they hold?
They're beautiful log houses,
Yeah.
a lot of them. Yeah.
I think most of them sleep between 16 and 12. Is
Okay.
kind of the average of the 10th Mountain system in a lot of the other privately owned huts.
So, Richelle, you're doing this personally. Tell us, do you rent the whole hut out and, bring in those amount of people that you want?
Yes, so for my winter, I've got it down. It's just my family and their friends, so it's me and 5 kids. So we rent upstairs, which sleeps 6. And then in the summer, I do get both upstairs and downstairs, so it's a total of 12.
Okay. Now, you had also mentioned, as we were preparing for the show too, it is really keenly important to know where the heck you're going. So doing it on your own or without anyone experienced is to me, I think, is you're putting yourself up to an issue. Something is not going to go right. So tell us a little bit about that, knowing where you're going. I know, Richelle, you have a map here, but there's more than just a map.
Well, you know what you're doing. I will say that my first hut trip, when
Well, I'm
I
glad
was,
that we've
yeah,
all confirmed that you're the expert.
you are
here,
the
so.
expert. But as the average person who had never been on one, I was meeting my group. Some of them were waiting for me. We were going to go up together. They were going to show me the route, and I couldn't even find the parking lot outside Leadville.
Oh,
it was tucked
wow,
in
that's how difficult. Okay.
a grove of trees.
Yeah.
So there are a few things it's so helpful going with a guide, at least your first time, if not every time.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get lost.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No, like I said, a map, Google Earth, going with someone that knows where to go. And yeah, finding the trailhead is often, it puts you off at least in the right direction. So.
And I've started on the wrong trailhead before, but that's part of the adventure. You figure it out.
Did you go in the wrong direction for a while?
A little while uphill too.
Well, now you've mentioned uphill. So let's talk a little bit about the gear that you're bringing in and maybe a little bit about what these huts may or may not have. So you mentioned to me they have solar, so there's a little bit of electricity, but what else do they have?
So most of the huts have solar panels, or I should say all of them have solar panels. They're supplied with a bunch of wood. That's how you're going to keep warm, is through fire, and propane, and pots and pans, so you can cook your meals. But most everything else you got to bring, your sleeping bag, your clothes, and your food, and any beverages you choose. That's kind of all on your back. So you want to be somewhat conscious of how much weight you're carrying. But then, to get to the huts, you either need the snowshoe, cross-country ski, or alpine touring gear is kind of the new wave that a lot of people are using, gear they're using to get to these huts.
Well, and thank God that gear has gotten a little bit lighter, I think, since when your parents were bringing you in.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, but wow, that's a lot of gear. Richelle, how do you think about preparing for one of these trips?
Well,
And what do
just
you
as a
bring?
funny side note, I was working in the travel business, and they had a book on visitors from all the countries and how they pack. And the Dutch bring one pair of underwear, and that's it. Like, they're light packers. And when it got to Americans, they said they pack an outfit for every potential occasion. And that was me and my
steamer trunk. I can
It was
see
a
people
steamer trunk.
trying to get a steamer trunk to one of these.
So
huts.
my first hut trip, I had everything. I had a bottle of champagne, and carrying that thing 3.5 hours uphill, I stripped it down the next year. I went so light. So it was actually good for me to learn to be a minimalist when I pack, and it's carried through to other trips too. You carry it in and you're carrying it out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'm a good 100 ounce water drinker, so when we were preparing, you both validated for me, you do melt your water, so you don't necessarily have to
Yeah, right.
crate the water in as well. So what about the challenges that people should kind of think about before they go in? When we were talking, you said you got lost going one way. The sun only is up, especially in the winter, until 4:30, 5 o'clock. So you obviously want to be in there. But what are some of the other things that people should be thinking about as a prerequisite or a safety issue when they're going into one of these?
Well, definitely the weather. A couple years ago, I didn't get my winter trip until April 15th, and I thought it's going to be spring-like conditions. And it was one of the biggest storms of the year, completely wiped out the path. It was
Oh, you're kidding
pristine.
me.
No. And we'd been a few times, so we knew the general direction.
Were you walking in the whiteout as well?
Yes.
Yeah, that really kind of.
But I loved it. I mean, it's part of the magic. I was so excited that it was winter conditions and not nice.
Did you feel like you were in the back bowls of Vail when you're
Yeah.
in a whiteout, where it's like the only way you know where you are is that your gravity's keeping you on the snow? Yeah.
It looked like nobody else had been there, which is hard to find these days. So it was awesome. Yeah.
What other things, Will, are your guides thinking about that, as you're going in and,
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is being outside for that long. It's not resort skiing where you can go in and get a hot chocolate the next run. You're out there for 3 to 7 hours, even longer at times, depending on your routes, and just being prepared for all the elements, whether it's a snowstorm, whether it's sunny weather. You can be down to your t-shirt in the middle of winter.
Yep.
Hiking uphill. That's how warm you get. And not sweating is a huge part of staying warm. As soon as you sweat and use all that energy, you're going to eventually get cold. So trying to just tell people it's not a race, go slow, and be methodical in your movements, and you're going to get to that hut.
Well, and I think when we spoke before the episode, you also mentioned that people should consider that they might have to sleep outside if they don't make it to the hut. So what should they have with them just in case they have to sleep outside?
Definitely a sleeping bag, so you're going to want a sleeping bag for the hut. They do get warm because you're melting snow for water and staying warm, but they cool down at night. But a sleeping bag's important. That's going to be your number one thing, and probably some kind of fire starter. Most of
I hadn't even thought about a fire starter.
the huts are below tree line, so you're going to be able to find some shelter and probably some wood. We're very lucky in Colorado that fires are pretty easy to start, but that would keep you warm. But you definitely want to be prepared to spend the night out. And if you look back in the log books, which are at all the huts from the 80s, you will find plenty of stories of people spending the night out.
So speaking of logbooks, how many huts are in Colorado? We talked about there's 4 major groups of huts. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think estimated they say around 50 huts between the
50.
systems, between 10th Mountain that books a bunch of them, and then there's a bunch of private huts that people have either built up on mining claims or renting out even on, for themselves. So, but I think the number's around 50 right now.
Okay, and they're all over Colorado, right?
All over, there's a nice group in the San Juan hut system. Then we have the Bronze system between Telluride, or between Crested Butte and Aspen. And then the 10th Mountain system is kind of between Vail, Leadville, and Aspen. And then the Summit hut system is kind of more the Front Range, Summit County. Those are kind of the 4 basic areas the huts are.
All right, so Richelle, as we're closing out this episode, I'm going to put you on the spot again. You can use more than one word, but what are the epiphanies that you've had doing this on your own and creating that family adventure that Will's parents, who are experts, right? They're the professionals, have been doing it for years. But what's that epiphany for you?
Well, again, I chose to move to Colorado. I love everything about the wilderness and the nature, and that I can do it on my own. Like, I'm just kind of an average, middle-aged woman, and I have taken 5 kids by myself.
So with that in mind, can I be one of your
yes,
kids?
I'm going to take you.
No,
I'm going to take you.
Thank
Yes.
you. And I just want to take a moment to thank the both of you. I learned so much just preparing for this, and I'm excited. And your enthusiasm is going to exude to the viewers, and I'm so grateful. So with that, I thank you all for sticking with us in Good Day Vail with the Hut Trip episode. And hopefully that you'll find a new way to thrive in the mountains through looking at wilderness in a different way. Huts. So thanks for joining us. See you next time on Good Day Vail. I'm Cece Zach.
On your way, the fun is waiting outside your